The Bermuda Triangle. You've heard the name, right? It's one of the biggest, most talked about mysteries of our time. This patch of ocean where ships and planes just vanish. But what's really happening out there? Is it some kind of paranormal vortex, or is there something else going on? Well, let's dive in and separate the facts from the fiction.
I mean, just think about those numbers for a second. Over 2,000 ships and hundreds of planes have supposedly been lost in this area. It's no wonder it's fueled so many books, movies, and, yeah, probably a few nightmares over the years.
The theories, they're all over the place. We're talking aliens, time warps, you name it. But there are scientific ideas too. And as we're about to see, the real story is this incredible mix of proven facts, total fiction, and some genuinely weird stuff that's actually been documented.
So to really get a handle on this whole myth, we've got to go way back. I mean, way, way back to the very first strange thing that was ever reported in the area, long before anyone called it the Bermuda Triangle.
That's right. The first person to write down that something weird was happening here was none other than Christopher Columbus himself. Back in 1492, he wrote in his logbook about two really bizarre things. First, seeing this great flame of fire crash into the sea, and then his compass just went nuts, spinning all over the place, not pointing north anymore.
So, what could have caused that? Well, scientists have a pretty compelling theory. It points to a magnetic asteroid. That great flame Columbus saw, that could have been the asteroid burning up as it hit the atmosphere. And if that asteroid was full of magnetic metals, the impact could have created this huge magnetic field that would totally scramble his compass, just for a little while. A mystery that's over 500 years old, maybe, just maybe, solved.
Okay, let's fast forward a few hundred years. The legends are only getting bigger at this point, and one of the most famous stories of all is about the SS Cotopaxi, a ship that back in 1925 just seemed to completely vanish off the face of the earth. In this case, wow, it perfectly shows you the giant gap between the legend and what really happened. The legend, which a lot of us know from Steven Spielberg's movie Close Encounters, is that aliens literally picked the ship up and dropped it in the middle of the Gobi Desert. It's an amazing story. But the reality, which took almost a century to figure out, is, well, it's a lot more ordinary and a lot more tragic. So how did they crack it? It was pure, old-school detective work. A shipwreck hunter named Michael Barnett just started piecing together all these little clues. He was looking at the wreck's location. He found these tiny little brass valves with SV stamped on them. And he actually traced them back to a company that was right near where the Cotopaxi was built. But the smoking gun was this old testimony he found. The ship had set sail with broken hatch covers, knowing they were broken, right as a massive storm was rolling in.
So, in the end, the famous disappearance of the Cotopaxi wasn't a paranormal event. It wasn't aliens. It was just a terrible and completely preventable mix of a bad storm and a really bad decision.
But here's the thing. Just because we solved one case doesn't mean all of them are that simple. No way. For every mystery we solve, there are others that just get weirder, and they remind us exactly why this legend of the triangle is so darn powerful. Okay, take Flight 19. This is a big one. In 1945, 5 Navy bombers are on a totally routine training mission. They just vanished. You can actually read the radio transcripts. The lead pilot, an expert with thousands of hours in the air, sounds completely lost. He thinks his compasses are broken. He thinks he's over the Florida Keys when he isn't. The official story is that they ran out of fuel. But seriously, how does an entire squadron, led by a total pro, get so lost that they literally fly off the map forever? And then, just 3 years after that, it happens again. This time, a passenger jet. 32 people on board. Gone. And the weather was perfect. Experts think maybe a sudden gust of wind knocked it off course. They even found a wreck that might have been it, but they could never be 100% sure. So it's another mystery with no real answers. All right, so we've talked about cases we've solved and cases that are still a mystery. Now we're going to get into the stuff that is just downright bizarre. This next story is one of the strangest and most detailed first-hand accounts to ever come out of the Bermuda Triangle. 47. Just remember that number. 47. It seems like just a number, but in this story, it's an impossible one. Because 47 is the number of minutes it took a pilot named Bruce Gernon to fly from the Bahamas to the Florida coast. This was a trip he had made dozens of times. It was supposed to take 90 minutes. 90. He did it in 47.
almost half the time. How is that even possible?
Gernon said he flew through something he could only describe as an electronic fog. He was very clear it was not a storm. He said it was this weird tunnel-shaped cloud, and as soon as he flew into it, his instruments went completely haywire, and he saw these bright flashes of white light that were definitely not lightning.
He said the walls of this cloud tunnel started to close in on him, wrapping around his plane. His words were like a vortex. He said the next 20 seconds were the most intense of his entire life. And look, this isn't just some wild story he told. There's actual data that makes his story so compelling. The trip took 47 minutes. His plane physically could not fly that fast. He used way less fuel than a 90-minute flight would need. And here's the kicker. Miami Air Traffic Control confirmed that his plane was totally invisible on their radar until it just popped up out of nowhere right over the airport. So what in the world happened? Well, Gernon himself believes he literally flew through something that bent time. Other people have theories about dark energy or a wormhole, but is there a scientific angle? Well, interestingly, if you look at the old weather data, there was intense solar wind activity that day, and some scientists think a huge solar storm could create a phenomenon just like an electronic fog that could mess with instruments and even make a plane invisible to radar. So we've got solved cases, we've got unsolved cases, and we've got these completely bizarre anomalies. What are we supposed to make of all this? You know, when you lay it all out like this, you start to see a pattern emerge, don't you? For every supernatural theory, aliens, time warps, whatever, there's often a pretty plausible scientific or logical explanation waiting in the wings. It could be an asteroid, could be human error, or it could be some kind of crazy weather event like solar winds. So what is the Bermuda Triangle? It's not one single thing. It's not one mystery. It's really just a name we've slapped onto a collection of totally separate events. Some are tragic accidents, some are real unsolved mysteries, and some are just a handful of truly strange things that science is still trying to figure out. And that kind of leads to one last really fascinating question. Maybe the real mystery here isn't about the ocean or the sky or any of that. And it has everything to do with us. Why are we so fascinated by the idea of some mysterious force out there? Maybe the biggest question the Bermuda Triangle asks is about our own need for the world to be a little less ordinary and just a little more mysterious.